Welcome to our summer series of artists, icons, and entrepreneurs. I am LuLu Benavidez, and today's guest truly represents all three words in the name of our podcast. Candy Shaw is a world-renowned hairstylist, a salon owner, an educator, entrepreneur, and a product innovator, and the woman many of us know as the Balayage Queen. Candy grew up surrounded by some of the greatest names in our industry, starting cutting hair at only 13 years old and never looked back. Today, she continues her work behind the chair while leading a 50-chair salon, teaching professionals around the world, operating an academy, and growing Sunlit's product company. In this conversation, Candy shares the honest reality of entrepreneurship, the importance of systems, and the power of education, and why she wants to leave the beauty industry better than she found it. Please subscribe to our channel, like this episode, and share with someone who believes in the power of creativity, education, and hard work. Now let's welcome the one and only Candy Shaw.
Because back then, all these iconic people had no money. So what did they do? They went and stayed at each other's houses. I mean, It wasn't, this travel around the country in this, beautiful limousine and great hotel rooms. Everybody was just trying to survive and build a wonderful company and or product line. I just remember as a kid how much that really impacted me. To become a hairdresser. I started cutting hair when I was 13 years old, and I never looked back, not a day. I went to high school to actually, in my high school, I had a hair code. And so I used to cut people's hair in trade for homework. Figured out ways to just say, oh my gosh, I need your help with my notes or whatever, because I had a learning disability of dyslexia. And so I was like, I'll cut your hair and keep you in hair code if you will help me with my homework. So I used my scissors as a means of entrepreneurialism, an entrepreneurial spirit, at a very young age.
Yeah. Well, I always think about you, Candy. I've just always been so in awe of you because you check all the boxes: a stylist, world-class salon owner, celebrity hairdresser, platform mega artist, and then, of course, cutter, colorist, and then, of course, your product line, and of course, you're known as the Balayage Queen. So I'm very interested in all of that. How you think of yourself or how you see Candy Shaw?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me that question because I'm actually working on a thing that I'm doing for a bunch of salon owners, and it's called the butterfly effect. And as I was getting this knowledge in my mind, like, okay, the butterfly effect, how I run my salon, how I can help others learn to do that. I really had to think about that for a minute because I'm like, I'm not a butterfly. I'm a friggin' unicorn. I'm like, unicorn. Like, there are very few people in this industry that are a salon owner, which, by the way, I still work at the chair. I have a 50-chair salon in Atlanta, so pray for me. I, created a product line. I have an academy. I travel and teach. And so that trifecta of business, keeps me up at night. I got to admit, I mean, it's a lot to take on, but I think what I want to be remembered as the most is, helping the weakest link. And if I can always reach back and bring people up with some kindness and some thought provoking ideas or, try to help them along the journey and the way, that's really, what I want to be remembered for is that testament to leaving this industry better than I found it and giving people solutions to their problems, because this industry is so full of challenges. I don't think people really sit around and talk much about that. They all talk about all the great things they're doing and all the wonderful things. Well, the reality is being an entrepreneur is hard. I always say the only difference in when someone says, "Oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to start something," I go, "Well, let me just go ahead and tell you that the word entrepreneur is wrong. It should be entrepreneur."
Yeah.
It is a lot to take on, and so as Candy the person, I mean, I'm just an educator. I'm just a hairdresser. I'm just a mom, a grandma, a wife. I'm just like everyone else. And I don't take myself so seriously that I think, just because I have all this makes me any better. I wake up every day trying to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. And if I accomplish that by the time I go to bed, it's a winning day.
Candy, you still in a salon today and you still work behind the chair because you love what you do and it's obvious. And I know you do 25 people a day.
I do.
So can you tell the audience what it's like being a stylist? Not necessarily an entrepreneur, but working behind the chair.
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to have really great systems. So
Mhm.
I don't speak here beating my chest about, oh, how many people you can do in a day. Because
Mhm.
really it's not, I'm always about quality over quantity, always. But I developed a French cutting and balayage technique that has really catapulted my business. As a matter of fact, it's tripled our business. And why it's unique is because of the efficiencies of how fast I can work. And of course, I have, a protege, one or two helping me out throughout the day, but I still sweep the floor. I still do shampoos. I still do all that. I don't stand back like a diva and point at things and expect people to bring me things. I do everything everyone else does. But I want to explain why I choose this life. I just feel that being an educator, I have a moral obligation to be my student as much, and to bring to my student what their struggles are. And so I love my approach to the classroom. The classroom is a place where I bring the chair to the classroom. And I am able to teach people about those struggles and how to be quicker and faster and more efficient. And so I'm at the chair 2 days a week and I absolutely love it because it allows me to work on my craft. It allows me to perfect skills. It allows me to test products that I'm developing. It allows me to train my team members. And it also allows me to lead by example. And when you have a 50 chair salon, that's a big horse to ride. And for me, being here and being in the trenches with my staff really allows them to see the possibilities. And yeah, can I do this in a fast, wonderful way? Great. I mean, that's wonderful to talk about, but I think more importantly, I have perfected the skill of customer service. I've perfected the skill of great haircuts and amazing colors. And I think that if I can teach people that, it's only going to help my salon grow.
Correct.
Candy, we have a lot of hairdressers, but we also have a lot of non-hairdressers. And I know even before your company and your cutting technique, you were teaching and out there. So can you, in kind of a generic way, describe what you teach, where you teach? And I will add this. Lulu and I both know you are a bona fide road warrior because you can't do without racking up some frequent flyer miles free if you have any stories to
Yeah.
throw them in.
Well, I'm going to simplify it really easy for you, Sue. There's a few things I do. I have an academy in Atlanta where I teach French cutting and balayage, which people can find out about looking me up. I also do every single one of the trade shows, and not everyone, but of the 6 or 7 really big shows. And then I also do distributor events with my my distributors that distribute our product. So, and all three of those carry a different type of classroom. For instance, my academy is going to be a 3-day course. My road at the trade shows are going to be sometimes an hour to 3 hours. And then my distributor events are going to be 2-day courses. So really there's a lot to be had. And then of course there's YouTube and every other, vehicle that you can use to educate folks with.
I really do hate you, Candy, because with everything that you do, have accomplished, the speed that you go at, I know that you're, a wife, a mother, a grandmother. You look fabulous,
Thank
and I hate you.
Well,
There.
I just have a good hairdresser.
Not fair, because you look
Thank you.
fabulous.
Well, I appreciate that, Sue. Thank you. But I do take really good care of myself. And I do want to tell your listeners that, because with every choice you make, there's a sacrifice that comes with it. We all know that. Time is our only commodity. It's the one thing we own. And people will ask me, how in the world do you travel? I mean, I just came off a 6-weekend road tour. And, how do you do that? I said, it's the power of no. And I say no to a lot of things. And when I go on the road, I go to bed. I am not the girl you'll find at the bar, the girl you'll find hooting and hollering. I am in bed, and I take really good care of myself. And, because I know that work-life balance is super important, but I'm also have a tremendous work ethic. And my father had it. And part of that was growing up with a learning disability. I never went to beauty school. I never went to college, because in Georgia, you don't have to go to beauty school. And the only way I could make it in the world was work my tail off, and so it's just how I'm built. It's my fabric. It's not for everyone. I don't think for 1 minute that it's for everyone. But I would say that if you're out there and feeling overwhelmed, learn that no, doesn't mean never. No just means not right now. And not right now sometimes is what you need to get yourself reset.
You talked about sitting on the steps and listening to your parents talk to these other people, these wonderful people, and that kind of got you into doing hairdressing. I have a little story for you, and we all have these stories. So Paul Mitchell came to my salon to do a class because Neil, at the time, Smokey Neil, had invited him to do that programmatic class. And then my job was to take him to Houston to do a show. So he does his class and in my salon. So I get him in the car. We drive to Houston, and he lights up a joint.
Yeah.
And he hands it to me. Well, I'm young. And I, roll up the windows, and I'm like just freaking out. And my children always tell me, Mom, did you know you got high with Paul Mitchell? So, I'm sure you have those stories too.
Oh yeah. We were actually mentioning, my husband and I were talking about this past weekend. We were talking about the difference between the leverage of social media.
God, yeah.
Videos. If there had been video of backstage antics that were happening when I was passing the pin curl clip to some of these artists, because I spent, much of my teenage years, backstage with my dad. He was a competition hairdresser. So that's what we did. We were traveling, he was teaching, same kind of thing. And, watching these people and, the hookups and the, I mean, and I'm a young, kid thinking, whoa, okay. But I was fortunate. My parents sent me to France to live for about 6 months of my life and, travel around and sort of meet some of these great iconic people, these European hairdressers.
Yeah.
But it was no different over there.
Yeah.
And I had to, the way I think of my daughter, who's 24 years old right now, her safety, like I barely let her drive out the driveway, you know?
Mm-hmm.
My parents were like putting me on planes, throwing me in places. I was by myself, but we took care of each other. Like I've known
Exactly.
Lee Paul Mitchell, you know, we went to his Avapui farm in Hawaii when I was a kid. And, you know, we hung out there and did things like that. And the community of hairdressers was like nothing. I mean, you could talk about the mafia. I
Yeah.
mean, it was like the hair mafia, but in a good way, you know?
Yes.
People
Correct.
would just pick you up, take you in, feed you meals, help you. You know, it wasn't like it is now, like all the hate and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not like that
Yeah.
anymore.
You know, Candy, you have a lot of humility, and in all honesty, I feel like maybe you did get that from your father, because when I first started going to Intercoiffure a zillion years ago, I was a B member because I was with the manufacturer. And your father was one of the first people who welcomed me. There'd be all these people wanting to talk to him, and he'd come over and talk to me. He'd sit at the table, and it was so inspirational to think, if this is how successful people act, yeah, I want in. This is the tribe I want to be with. And I've always been grateful that I got to know him in that way.
Well, thank you. And you're absolutely right. And that is what I aspire every day, to bring more into the industry. I often say we don't have a talent. We don't have a labor shortage. We have a talent shortage, right? So when I grew up, I was around so much talent, you know, because my dad would just practice in the garage. There was no watching a YouTube video. Figure the freaking stuff out yourself. You know what I mean? And they were so kind. Like Intercoiffure is my family, because everybody shares and everybody cares and everybody wants to help you. And you know, Sue, it's so important that we remember those forefathers, and we remember those people who really paved the way, because there's nothing new in our industry, really. If you look at it right now, other than a few little, you know, ingredient things that are happening. But as far as hair goes, I mean, we've all seen it all, done it all. You know, I think the thing that we could bring back is the basics of love and kindness and grace and humility. Because, you know, I always say, people ask me, well, you know, there's all these influencers, you know, how do you feel about these influencers? And I say, well, look, it's great. I think it's awesome. But I'd rather have, instead of having, you know, how many followers I have, I'd rather have believers. You know, there's a difference, you know, between a following and a belief system. And my dad was really big on belief system. He was like the E.F. Hutton of hairdressers. When he spoke, people listened.
Everybody listened.
And, you know, he didn't shoot the crap. He told it straight. And that's just something I've adopted along the way, is, you know, I want to help people, but be careful. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. So be aware that if you don't have your big girl panties on, it's not going to work out for us.
Well, Candy, why don't you tell us more about the Sunlets Balayage that you created? Because I know that I went to one of your classes and years and years ago, and I learned how to balayage, which was a totally different way of doing highlights. So can you tell our audience about that?
Sure. And basically, I was painting hair before painting hair was cool. And I was actually importing a product out of Europe, and it dried up, no pun intended. It was no longer available. And so I live in Georgia, and the natural resource in Georgia is red Georgia clay. And I knew that they use clay in cosmetics, and I knew that they use clay in printing and in porcelains like China. And I thought, you know, why don't we have clay in a lightener? You know, that would be a really novel idea, so that when we paint hair, it wouldn't just dust off and fall off. And so I spent 2 years in R&D developing a lightener, and I'm the OG first to market of the first clay lightener that ever went to market. Now everyone has one. And now I'm also the first to market with the first foil lightener, Moonlights. And it was almost like the thought of LuLu. It was like, okay, we've got all this farm to table. How about farm to hair? You know? And So I just, just had an idea and, went after it. And I started with one product, and that was sunlights. And now, we're up in the high 40s of our SKUs at this point. But but literally it just was I was solving a problem of my own.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go out and say, let me create a product so I can get rich. That was not it. It was, let me solve a problem, because I'm a balayage artist. And I did ask people to come along for the ride. And kind of what I got was, balayage is just a trend. It's going to go away. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's the little black dress. And it's not going anywhere. And it's tripled my business and my salon. We're a 90% balayage salon. And, so Sunlights was just a baby. It was a dream. I took, my own money. I didn't hire, I didn't go raise capital. I'm 100% woman owned, 100% me. And it's been a great ride. And it's been a lot of fun, because it's afforded a lot of really cool things to happen in my career. But more importantly, it's helped a lot of people, and it's changed a lot of lives.
Candy, thank you for sharing your incredible journey. Your honesty and your passion for helping others in the beauty professional succeed. Your story reminds us that success is not only about talent or recognition, it's about solving problems, building strong systems, and staying connected to your craft and reaching back to help others along the way. To everyone watching, please subscribe to Artists, Icons, and Entrepreneurs so you will never miss one of our conversations. Leave us a comment and tell us what lessons you learned from Candy's story that inspired you the most. Please like this episode, share it with a hairstylist, a salon owner, an educator, or an entrepreneur who will benefit from this. Thank you again for joining us. Until next time, continue creating, continue learning, and continue believe in what is possible. Thank you.